It's Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Keatsman, in the seat for an hour leading you up to the Vince Show. We are going to pack everything you need to know in 1 hour today. This is going to be a fun one. I'm very much looking forward to this broadcast, including another win in just a moment. Our lead story, it is an area win. It is not a national win, but another victory. Also, one Kansas City community has residents fighting back against their city council and police department over an investigation they believe went awry, and they make a very good case on that. It was a rough week for a whole bunch of Democrats in the media who have moved from Trump is dead because we didn't see him for 48 hours to, well, there's something wrong with him, to he's a war criminal. You can't shoot down a narco boat because we don't know what's and who were in it. For sure. Now they have two new schemes, as those are all just disproven very quickly. One liberal pundit, this is unbelievable. You're just not going to believe it. You're not going to believe what the next thing is that's coming up that they're going to try on Trump. At 10:30 today, Lee Sterling will join us. He's with ParamountSports.com. He is a football prognosticator. We'll talk a little Chiefs and Chargers and KUMU and K-State Army with him. And if you are so inclined to put a wager down on a football game, he might give you advice on which team to bet on. We'll do that. And, of course, we check in with Mark at the end. We'll talk a little bit about Mayor Q's interview with Pete Mundo today, which was outstanding, and the comments he made about Arrowhead Stadium and a possible partnership between the Big 12 and Barstool Sports. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? It is all ahead, and we start today with a massive win for yesterday's big story on KCMO Talk Radio, and Governor Jeff Collier, who was a guest right here on Uncanceled. As you know, yesterday he put out a press release calling for the investigation and firing of a far-left extremist in the Civil Rights Administration at Kansas State University. This person had declared on social media pro-terrorism ideas, anti-Semitic views, and Marxist ties to different organizations. I received a phone call from Governor Collier last night at home, and he said, Kevin, good news. I said, what's that? He goes, 4 hours after being on KCMO Talk Radio, Governor Collier got a call from Kansas State saying that Darren Borders had been suspended, the far-left extremist that works in civil rights and Title IX at Kansas State. It is a win for the people of Kansas. It's also a win for Governor Jeff Collier, who's running for governor and taking a page out of the Trump book. He is actually doing things and affecting change as a candidate instead of just campaigning. Now, granted, he had formerly been the governor for a while, and he has a lot of contacts around the state, but this was not coming to light. Where are the people that work in Topeka on this? Where are the members of the Board of Regents in the state of Kansas? Where are the people at Kansas State University whose job it is to know these sorts of things? How is it that a man that was in surgery all morning walks into a radio station in Scrubs, makes some comments about what's going on at K-State, and 4 hours later the man is suspended? How is that possible that somebody has to work as hard and do as much as Jeff Collier? Why? Why aren't there people in Topeka in the state level and at K-State that are catching these things? How do these things happen? We assume this will end with a termination. That has not been determined yet by Kansas State. We're pleased to be a part of this story. It started yesterday morning on my podcast, Kevin Keatsman Has Issues. We released that episode about 7:20 yesterday morning. My phone started blowing up from podcast listeners of people that I know saying, I can't believe this is happening at K-State. Then we carried it over to the radio show, and Governor Collier was on here, and it really gained traction. And the action happened some 4 hours later. Governor Collier was going to join us with a call-in here at the start of the show to talk about this, but he's put out a statement instead. It's not that he won't come on. He's in surgery. Somebody with a bullet wound came in about an hour ago, and he's operating on the guy. I assume it's a guy. I'm sorry, I don't mean to gender identify anyone. It could be a woman that was shot, but he's in surgery and he can't be on right now. He's released a statement thanking Kansas State University for acting swiftly and protecting the people of Kansas. He said all the right things, he did all the right things, and he corrected a wrong. Shame on Kansas State Certainly people knew. You don't have this person working on your staff without people whispering behind closed doors of, hey, what's going on with this guy and how's this happening? And nobody runs it up the food chain? I'm going to guess this was quite a shock to the president of the university, Dr. Linton, when his phone started ringing off the hook like crazy from Kevin Keatsman Has Issues podcast listeners and KCMO Talk Radio listeners and the Civil Rights Department and the Title IX Department. They just got blown up with phone calls. They had no other option. Folks, I'll tell you a little secret about the world that not many people know. If a business gets called by 5 people with a complaint, and it's the same complaint and the same problem, it really gets their attention. If 100 call, it changes everything. I can't imagine how many Kansas State University supporters or conservatives or taxpayers and voters in the state of Kansas heard this story yesterday and called K-State. Good for the people of Kansas. This works. We the people works. And I'm not going to sit here and blast K-State all day long because I don't know what happened, how it happened, or anything like that. These things are happening in places all over the country. What I am going to say is this wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they'd have stood their ground. Let's wait this out. They'd drag it on for 3 weeks, and if it got to where it was all mayhem, then they might have suspended the dude. They'd have stood their ground and said, we diversity and equality and we all viewpoints. Well, it's one viewpoint to say you believe, I guess, maybe there should be a Palestine. There's another to say that, you don't apologize for any dead Jews. That's a little different when you're an employee for an organization. And you represent them in civil rights of all things. And Title IX. Now, this is the golden age of Trump. This is a new era. Things didn't move like this in 4 hours. These people are learning the hard way. They're learning at universities all over America the hard way. They're getting defunded by the federal government. And you know what's good for K-State and KU and Missouri and Harvard and Cornell and Dartmouth and Yale? You know what's good for all of them? It's good for them to be scared of Trump. It's good for our academic institutions to finally be scared of something because they live in this bubbled world of tenure where you never get reprimanded, you never get fired. The only people that get fired on campus are coaches making $7 million a year, and nobody's going to feel sorry for them. Oh, Kansas State right now cannot fire its basketball coach because they owe him $19 million. So they're doubling down and spending more money on more players trying to help him out because the guy can't coach. The only people that get fired are in athletics. You can't get fired at a university. Well, it looks like this guy's getting fired. It took 4 hours to get him suspended. He's probably still getting paid. It doesn't say. Kansas State is not commenting publicly on this yet, but it's happened. It's confirmed. And we can tell you it was the people of the state of Kansas. It was the listeners of this radio station, the podcast. But more than anything, it was Governor Jeff Collier for pointing this out because nobody knew it until Collier did it. Now, I'm not telling anybody who to vote for in a Republican primary for governor. At least not yet, because I don't know who the heck's running. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if Collier's the most like Trump. I don't know if he's the most conservative. I don't know these things. I don't know. What I do know is one candidate for governor in Kansas is actually doing things while he's running instead of just running his mouth like he's some kind of a radio show host for 1 hour a day. Love that story. Way to go, Governor Collier. Excellent win. We will take that. By the way, he told me last night in my phone call that as governor a few years ago at the Spencer Museum of Art on the University of Kansas campus, they had an artist creating American flags that were all desecrated. He said, I can't even repeat what they were doing and calling it artwork. It was like pornography on American flags. It was the months while he was governor. Remember, he didn't get elected as governor. He took over after Brownback was out, and he was there for a few months. It was while he was governor, and he told me, I haven't verified this story, but he told me this last night. He said it only took me 4 hours to get those flags taken down at KU when I was governor. He said it's a lot easier to do when you're governor than when you're just campaigning for governor. But he was very proud of that, and he was proud that he did that at the University of Kansas. He wants everybody to know he's not picking on K-State here. His thing is our universities are not going to be woke bastions. It's not going to work like that. He literally wouldn't repeat to me over the phone what was on these flags that they were calling artwork at KU. But they were American flags, and he was livid about it and apparently got that done while he was governor. So we appreciate the work that he's done there. All right, another big story. Trump has asked the Supreme Court to have an emergency hearing on tariffs, because if they don't allow the tariffs to continue, not only are they going to stop, and it changes everything we're doing economically and what we've adjusted for the next 4 years, we're going to owe like a couple $100 billion back to these countries that we've taken money from. This is crazy. So what does NBC News do? NBC News goes out and finds 12 federal judges below the Supreme Court off the record anonymously that are critical of the emergency rulings by the Supreme Court. They say they're inexcusable. They imply poor work by lower courts. You know what? I could be wrong. But when you have a district court, a federal court, an appellate court, and a Supreme Court, isn't it the Supreme Court's job to make sure that the lower courts aren't doing poor work? Isn't that exactly why we have a Supreme Court? These judges are butthurt because they think the Supreme Court is making them look bad by siding with Trump all these things. Oh, we've overturned all this Trump stuff and you're overturning us. Yes, that's how it's set up. One judge told NBC News anonymously, somebody's going to die. These judges don't feel safe. Well, how about this? How about you stop bastardizing the law and overturning things that are perfectly within the purview of a president? How can you have a federal court rule that Trump can't do these tariffs, but it was okay that Biden had one on China? It's just a simple question. I'm not a judge and I'm not a lawyer, but I do live in a real world and I've got some common sense to me. You say by a vote of 7-4 that it's okay for Biden's tariffs on China to stay, but Trump's tariffs against other countries can't. And you're worried that it's becoming dangerous to be a liberal federal judge? First of all, you're a lot safer than a conservative judge. That's proven. That's not even close. That's absolutely the case. And to tell NBC News, and shame on NBC News for reporting that any federal judge said somebody's going to die because Trump is appealing to the Supreme Court without identifying who that judge is. Shame on NBC News. I don't believe that. I believe the person that told them that doesn't really believe that. They're just saying that to get after Trump. And it goes on and on and on. 913-408-7957 is our phone number. Give me a shout. 408-7957. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. Thanks for listening to the show every day and listening to KCMO Talk Radio. In just a moment, one Kansas City community is fighting back against not only the city council, but the police chief over something some residents say is complete corruption. We'll have that for you in a moment. We are brought to you today by our friends at bestofferkc.com, helping you leave the hassle behind. A woman named Stacy a few months ago was in a really difficult situation at the home that she was in. It was dangerous for her and her children. It was an abusive home. She needed out. She couldn't show her house. She didn't have the ability to really fix it up or do anything like that. And she called Best Offer KC, who got her some money quickly, got her moved out of town to safety. And a few weeks later, she called back and said she couldn't be happier with the start of her new life. She felt safe and secure with her and her kids. None of this was her fault. She got her house sold and got her money, and she's moved on with her life. So many of these stories about people who need to sell their house quickly involve something that's deeply personal, whether it's a health issue, some people may be going through personal issues with divorce or things like that, or even people, something as sad as in an abusive home that they have to go. BestOfferKC.com is your friend in the real estate business. Over 10% of the homes in Kansas City are sold without realtors or without showings. BestOfferKC.com has never once backed out of a deal. If you know somebody that needs to sell their house fast, have them call BestOfferKC.com at 816-338-SOLD. That's 338-SOLD for Best Offer KC, helping you leave the hassle behind. You may recall 2 weeks ago here on Uncanceled, we talked about a firestorm in Lenexa over a city councilwoman named Melanie Arroyo, who was elected to the council, and then it was found out that she had been in Kansas City or in the United States for over 20 years illegally or overstaying her work visas. And it became quite the firestorm, asking the question, is she an American citizen? Otherwise, she can't be on the Lenexa City Council. Well, we know what happened. They said they checked with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. They didn't know. They checked with the feds. They couldn't find anything out. They didn't know. So they asked her to come into the police station. They were going to interview the whole thing. And a lawyer got a hold of the police and said, no, we're not doing that. We'll just provide you with the documentation, which they did. And the police chief took the documentation and said, we're all good here. There's nothing to see. Well, the people of Lenexa didn't like this story at all. And Tuesday night, they had a city council meeting, and it was a bit of a firestorm when a local businesswoman and GOP activist in the past takes the microphone and starts reading her 2 minutes at the podium about what's going on. And I'm going to read an excerpt from exactly what she said, because this is, if all this is true, this story isn't going away. It reads like this. The recent investigation into Councilwoman Melanie Arroyo raises deeply troubling questions that demand answers. The facts are clear. The Lenexa police officer who was assigned this investigation acted correctly when he contacted Homeland Security to inquire about legal status. Homeland Security agreed to assist and requested the officer send him Ms. Arroyo's identifying information. Yet before Homeland Security could even respond, Ms. Arroyo's defense attorney called the department, offering to provide papers herself. The Lenexa police accepted these documents, thereby allowing the person who was the subject of the investigation to control the evidence, thus sidelining Homeland Security. Why would a police department ever accept documents from a defendant's attorney instead of federal authorities? The answer appears to lie with Police Chief Dawn Lehman. By her own admission, Chief Lehman personally called Ms. Arroyo before the investigation even began, effectively tipping her off and thereby giving her the opportunity to prepare her defense. This is not law enforcement. It is favoritism, it is misconduct, and it's a betrayal of public trust. It begs the question, was there any other interference by our mayor, Julie Sayers, or any other city council members in this so-called investigation? The conflict of interest is glaring. Councilwoman Arroyo and the city council control the salary, benefits, and budget of Chief Lehman and her department. Rather than recusing herself and transferring the matter to the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, as is standard practice when such a conflict exists, Chief Lehman chose to personally involve her department. By doing so, she ensured the investigation could never be impartial. Okay, even if nothing's gone wrong here, they've moved to another level, the people of Lenexa, saying we've got a scandal here of epic proportions. We've got a mayor and a council and a police chief all working together on the left for woke political reasons, and they can't be doing this. Maybe that's the bigger story here. I don't know, because it gets better. It is also sent to me that Chief Lehman has all kinds of issues, including an incident that occurred, I guess, a couple of years ago, that according to media reports, listen to this. Police Chief Ellen Hansen, at the time, Dawn Lehman was not the police chief, Ellen Hansen purchased an airline ticket to go to a police conference, but had to change plans because of a family illness. Rather than have the department purchase another ticket for her substitute, Officer Dawn Lehman, who is now the police chief, Chief Hansen made up an official police ID card with her name on it and Lehman's face to present at the airport so she could fly under a fake name. Somebody tipped off the airline, and after a lot of explaining, Chief Hansen at that time apologized, but this has flagged Chief Lehman ever since. What law enforcement officers fake IDs with a name and photo that don't match and fly on our airlines post 9/11? These are the people running the police department in Lenexa? Now, that's according to a couple of media reports. I've not independently verified that myself, but this is what's coming up in the council meeting. Julie Sayers, the mayor of Lenexa, is as far left as any politician in the Kansas City area. She's way left. The day after she won in Lenexa, first Democrat mayor by my knowledge, she went to Atlanta to be with Stacey Abrams and do a news conference. She has aspirations to go way up in the Democrat Party, and she's turning Lenexa woke. She's the opposite of everything else that's going on, and it's happening in Lenexa. We appreciate the awesome work of the folks in Lenexa for providing this information to me. Greatly appreciated. When Uncanceled continues, we're coming back with Lee Sterling. We're going to talk a little football. The Chiefs open tomorrow night against the Chargers. That is next on KCMO Talk Radio. All right, we're back on Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. A longtime friend of mine now joining the show. He is Lee Sterling. He's the founder and CEO, president of ParamountSports.com. He is a sports handicapper. You will not meet anybody that knows more about football than Lee Sterling, and I've known him for well over 20 years now, probably 25 years. I refer to him as the Sultan of South Beach because he is out of Miami, Florida, and the NFL season starts tonight with the Cowboys and the Eagles. We're going to talk a little Chiefs-Chargers. It is my pleasure to welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO my friend Lee Sterling at ParamountSports.com. Hi, Lee. How you doing?
I'm great. Should be a fun weekend. And, boy, the games in your region, these are the marquee games, I think, in college football and also the NFL's. So it's going to be great to start it off, and let's hope they live up to the billing.
Do you see it, before we get into each of these games specifically and things, what do you see as any trend this year heading into football? You've watched 1 week of college now, and the NFL is getting ready to start. What do we need to know that is maybe different this year, or trend lines you're looking at in the sport this year?
Well, what we're noticing, except for maybe like Miami and a few other teams, the transfer portal was not the instant success that everyone had hoped for. People like Carson Beck, he certainly looked great, but most of these other teams, I think it's going to take them at least 2 or 3 weeks to start, really getting a bond together. And you can't expect, some of these teams have 12, 13, 14 new transfer portal starters here to all of a sudden come out week one and just dominate. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think we saw with Arch Manning last week for Texas as such a young guy, becoming a starter for the first time. There's an adjustment period. It takes, especially at the quarterback position, this right as well as anyone. Veteran quarterbacks in college really matter, but it's kind of the same thing in the NFL. The AFC is loaded now with what we'll call veteran quarterbacks. Some of them are a couple, 3 years younger than Patrick Mahomes, but they're veteran guys. How tough is the AFC with all these quarterbacks?
Oh, I mean, just look at the top three. Look at Josh Allen and look at Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, these guys, any one of them on any given day can, carry a team. So the biggest problem being a former college quarterback is these kids see Patrick Mahomes. They see sidearm passes, the different slot angles, and the two biggest mistakes that Arch Manning made, first was one of his throws in the third quarter on a short post corner. He delivered the ball too late, had nothing on it. That was number one. And then on the crossing route, if he just used his fundamentals, probably would have hit the receiver, right in stride, and he goes for 25, 30 yards. Instead, he tries to Patrick Mahomes sidearm and throws it behind him, and game set match.
We're talking with Lee Sterling of ParamountSports.com. If you want to check out his website and any of his predictions this week against the spread, especially if you're ready to lay something down, Lee is your guy. I can attest to that. We're really excited here for the Chiefs and Chargers in Brazil. You and I have talked about this. I think it's going to be really hard for the Chiefs this year. Not that it hasn't been hard in the past, but this division's been cake for a while. I think the Broncos are good. I think the Chargers are good. I think the AFC almost across the board with these quarterbacks is better. I just think the road for the Chiefs is harder. It doesn't mean they're a worse team or a better team. We don't know that yet. What do you think the AFC looks like for the Chiefs, and how much harder is it?
Well, just look at the Broncos. Patrick Nix and with Sean Payton, they're a dynamic duo working together. And I sat next to Nick Benito's father in that Miami game, and most people couldn't tell you who he was. He just signed a 4-year, $120 million contract. Well, he was only the third leading sack leader in the NFL, 13.5 sacks. They found him out of nowhere in the second round. So Denver's going to be better. The Chargers have a great coaching staff. They know how to win. Yeah, and then just look at the offensive production from the Chiefs. Been on a slight decline here. So in 2022, 6.3 yards per play, 5.6 in 2023, 5.1 in 2024. Even the Jets had more, 5.2 yards per carry. Heck, the Chargers had more, 5.4. So, without Rashid Rice to start the year, it's gonna be tough. It might take them until midseason until they start clicking here. And I think this is a tough game here. I'm leaning towards the under 46 total points. I have the Chargers, believe it or not, pulling off the small upset here, 23-21. One play, one turnover could make the difference. I don't want to lay more than 3 points on a neutral site game.
Yeah, and I think last year that the Chiefs lost the spread, but they won both these games but didn't cover in either one. It's just kind of the way the whole season was. The Chiefs had so many games that went right down to the wire, nip and tuck. I can't see anything other than a close game in this thing. I can't. Now, I don't know what kind of factor it is to go to Brazil. The Chiefs are apparently staying 2 hours away from the stadium at a hotel for security reasons and things like that. We don't know what the field's going to be like. How many variables will that be, and how do you factor things like that in before making a final call on a game like this?
Well, generally, the games are a little more lower scoring, and also it could affect the kickers. You're kicking a lot of times on a different surface. You're used to kicking your home stadium, or you've kicked before these kickers, on the road in these type of settings. But the whole background is different, and just they're not going to be able to bring in the same exact type of grass they have in the United States. So they're playing usually soccer on it, not football.
All right, let's talk a little college football. Lee Sterling, our guest, ParamountSports.com is his website. Missouri and Kansas renew the border war. It's been 14 years since they've played each other. When this thing ended in 2011, you couldn't say border war. They took it away. It was a border battle, border showdown. It was border. Man, we've done full circle because, hell, we can say anything we want in America again, and I love it. They're embracing this as the border war. The mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, on this station this morning says, I'm calling this thing the border war again because it refers back to the Civil War and everything else. There's a lot of history here. Missouri and Kansas renewing the border war. What are your thoughts about the Jayhawks traveling to Columbia?
I love it, and these two teams should play every single year. I thought there was going to be a huge drop-off of this Missouri team, and I've watched every single game in Division I play. Just finished last night, and I don't think there is going to be a drop-off. I know they lost Brady Cook, running back Nate Noel, and Luther Burden, but watch this new quarterback, Bo Probilla from Penn State, true freshman running back Marquise Davis, and a wide receiver transfer from Mississippi State, Kevin Coleman. I think they're going to shine. They also got two great transfers in the transfer portal, this defensive end, Wilson from UGA, and Jalen Catalon, maybe the best safety in the portal from UNLV. I think Kansas is better than last year, but are they up to SEC middle-of-the-road standards, which Missouri, as we know, is? I don't think so. I like Missouri here by a touchdown here, 35-27.
All right, and finally, it is Fort Riley Day in Manhattan as Army visits Kansas State, and Army's going to have the most warm welcome of any road team in America this week. They'll get a standing ovation when they come out in Manhattan, I feel sure. I can't figure out how Kansas State, who lost to Iowa State and probably should have lost last week as bad as their defense was, is a 16.5-point favorite over Army. Can you help me out on this one?
Well, because Army lost last week to Tarleton State. And normally when you see these, triple option teams, Army, Navy, Air Force, and now Rice run it, you need at least 5 yards per carry to be successful. They only averaged here 4.2 yards per carry. So Tarleton State gained 14.7 yards per minute of possession to Army's 11.2 here. I just think that Kansas State's going to roll. You're going to see a lot of 2- and 3-play touchdown drives for Kansas State and a lot of 8- to 12-play drives for Army that ended at midfield here. I think the right team is favored, Kansas State here. They win this game 45-13.
Lee Sterling's with ParamountSports.com. Lee, explain to everybody exactly what it is that you do. You don't take bets. You're not a betting service. Right. You're an information provider. Is that the best way to describe it?
Very good way. I'm like a stockbroker and sports tip. So if you want to get the edge, and I'm a former college quarterback. I study it with my staff. Football, UFC, basketball, baseball, and hockey. We've only had one losing year in football and one in hockey in all 31 years in business. So if you're looking for an edge, we're going to give you the games that we're personally playing. It's a phone service. We rate them from 10 to 50 units, and on our 40 to 50 unit plays documented over the last 17 years. Get this, we're 71-28. We have our first one going this year in college football. So if you'd like to give us a try, just go to the website, ParamountSports.com, or call 800-400-9741.
Thank you, Lee. We appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you throughout from time to time throughout the season, buddy.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care. Be safe.
You too. Thank you. He's Lee Sterling with ParamountSports.com. Again, his phone number, 800-400-9741, if you'd like to reach out to him. He is the Sultan of South Beach, Mark. I don't know that he has your Saturday record from last year. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I can't top that this year.
I just think what guys like Lee do is so hard because, I think you can really get an edge in a lot of things in sports. The NFL is just impossible. And Lee will he'll have like 3 really great weeks in a row where he's won. And then in the NFL, you could have a week where he goes 1-5 or something. And everybody calls him like, you're terrible. He's like, it's the hardest thing in the world, man, because the NFL is just impossible.
And college is getting more tough with the transfer portal. Like he said, the first week it's tough to tell what people are going to do. So once there's a little bit of a trend, it gets easier in college. But, man, out of the gates, it's tough.
Yeah. I think one of the great things that Lee does that I've noticed through the years, because I call his service and I use it, and he finds games that I'm not looking at, like Appalachian State is playing Tarleton or whatever he mentioned, and he'll have that. And he knows a lot of coaches and a lot of people and different things. He doesn't have inside information, but he just knows teams. He watches all this film and all this stuff, and he'll hit those games that you would never even think about playing. If you like betting on sports and not just, hey, I'm going to be watching the Ohio State-Texas game. I need some action. What should I do? If you really like being into it, he finds nuggets in college like nobody I've ever met. Small games you might not be thinking about. Pretty cool stuff. Lee Sterling, ParamountSports.com, joining us here on Uncanceled. We come back. We got more with Mark. This is one hot, sexy young man. He's got a big weekend ahead. He's all psyched up. We got the Chiefs and the Chargers. We're going to do that all next on KCMO. I'm not sure I remember a time in the Matt Quatraro era in Kansas City where the manager and the players were as down as they were last night after the Royals lost to the Angels. It was complete and utter despair. The last 2 days, the Royals have had a wonderful opportunity to beat a bad team and could be like tied for a wild card spot right now if they'd won these games, and they didn't, and they looked bad. Is this rock bottom, Mark Van Sickle?
It's not rock bottom, but it's not good. I mean, the Mariners keep losing. Like you said, if the Royals would just win this series, even 3 out of 4 against the Angels, I think they're playing them 4 times, then they'd be in the wild card. They just have to win, and they can't do it against this team they should be beating.
It's ugly. It's definitely ugly, and it was a bummer. And I think tonight will be a big tell on how they respond. I don't know what to expect. Vinny was really upset 2 nights ago and said, this is unacceptable. That's not good enough. We're in something here, and this matters, and this is unacceptable. And then they backed it up last night with another bad performance. And some teams will fold, and that's the end of them. And some it'll be a come to Jesus meeting, and they'll turn it around. I don't know what to expect out of him.
Vinny had all those home runs in a row, and now he's slumping. So we need Vinny to get out of it so that we can get some RBIs in the middle of that order.
Everybody's slumping, no doubt. Did you hear Mayor Q's comments about Arrowhead Stadium earlier today with Pete Mundo? Of course you did. What did you think of him? He basically thinks that sooner rather than later the Chiefs are going to announce they're staying at Arrowhead.
I don't know what to think.
Oh, really?
I think he wants that, so that's why he's saying it, but I don't know if it's true or not.
I think it's true he thinks that, and he's been told that. My stance is that the Chiefs are playing both sides of this to the hilt, and now both sides are convinced they're going to get it, and that's just what teams do. Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you what you want to hear until the very end when they break your heart. So, again, I'm not making predictions. I've said before, you go where the most money is, for sure, and NFL teams don't renovate stadiums anymore. They don't. They build new ones. So, to me, it would be a shocker if they stayed at Arrowhead, but I'm not going to sit here and discount it and say it can't happen. It just doesn't make any sense compared to the rest of the league and what everybody's out there doing. Did you see Kirk Herbstreit's dog the other night on the broadcast when North Carolina was playing TCU?
Yes, it was the most entertaining part of that second half.
It really was. He had him in the control room, and he put the headphones on him, and you could hear the dog panting into the microphone, couldn't you? Did you see that part?
Yes. It looked like there were some stains on the carpet, too, by the way.
Did it? Really? Okay.
I don't know about that.
So the dog from the previous years has passed, right? Is gone.
Yep.
And he's got multiple dogs. He's got 4 or 5 retrievers.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got a new one that travels with him, and he is Herb Street. Apparently, the dog is a service animal for Kirk Herbstreit, who has some anxiety issues. Am I stating that properly?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. So this happened, and everybody likes to lighten things up around Herbstreit. And during the commercial break, the dog's there, mayhem's taking place, all this stuff. And they come back, and Herbstreit's microphone is open, and he didn't know it. And it sounds like he says, they're bad. And everybody went crazy on social media thinking he was just hammering North Carolina for how bad they were under Bill Belichick. And he said, that's not what I said. One of the crew members told a joke in my headset right before we came back, and I said, you're bad to a crew member, and they've all backed him up. When you listen to it, he does say you're bad. But you can go, you're bad and they're bad, and they kind of sound like the same thing. I can understand why people thought he said they're bad, because people were watching Carolina be bad. They were really bad. I felt a little bad for Herbie on that.
I'm glad the joke didn't go over there, because sometimes people get in trouble for that kind of thing.
Right. Did you see the NFL Red Zone? Do you watch Red Zone?
I've never had it, but I have a ton of friends.
Oh, my gosh. NFL Red Zone's the best. It's been on NFL Network, and it's 7 hours of football from noon until 6:45 or 7 o'clock, whenever that last window game is over. There's no commercial all day. There's a guy named Scott Hansen on there, and, you know, some people will call it Hansen Vision, not Red Zone, because he's on the whole time. He takes bathroom breaks by putting 5 games on the screen and walking away, and then they just switch from one game to another, and you don't hear him for a couple minutes because he has to eat at some point and do whatever. It's fantastic. ESPN now, the NFL has purchased part of NFL Network, and so there's going to be commercials.
I saw a lot of people down about that
yesterday. My gosh. Not just on the screen, they're going to take commercial breaks.
Ooh.
Brutal. Leave it to ESPN to ruin Red Zone. They have done it. Now, if you think they're ruining Red Zone, I think most of our audience is aware of a man named Dave Portnoy. He's the founder of Barstool Sports. He's pretty conservative. There's some things we like about Dave Portnoy. We appreciate him being an entrepreneur, businessman. He does great things for charity. I think he loves America. There's a lot there. But, boy, he is a pain in the ass as a human being. He's had blow-ups with his staff. He's ripped them live on air. I thought he made a fool of himself last week. Now he's working for Fox Sports as a Michigan fan, taunting Ohio State fans at the game. It seems fake. It looked like wrestling to me. We have a report now that yesterday, Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, and all the ADs were on a conference call with Dave Portnoy and given him a blank canvas for Barstool Sports to go to any campus, anytime, anywhere in the Big 12 and do what they do. Now, that sounds like a race to the bottom.
Yeah, that could be a little risque there.
We are 2 weeks removed from the Big 12 telling ESPN they can't use the term Farmageddon. They did. Reese Davis said they told us we can't use the term Farmageddon when referring to Kansas State and Iowa State.
Unbelievable.
You can't say Farmageddon, but you're bringing Dave Portnoy in. This can't end well, can it?
I did tell him to get some pizza shuttle when he's in Lawrence.
Oh, did you? So I wonder if the Big 12's thought is, let's bring him in, let's have something really bad happen, then we'll fire him and get all this publicity that it's some sort of a stunt. I can't figure this out. This can't go well, can it?
No. I kind of get the Dave Portnoy thing. It's kind of like ESPN with Pat McAfee.
Right.
But I just don't like it.
McAfee's half as controversial as Portnoy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, so we don't know what the Big 12's up to, but I was surprised to hear that. The Vince Show is coming up next. Thanks for listening to Uncanceled. I'm Kevin Keatsman. Have a great day, Kansas City.